Okay, so first thing, we want to do d dx of both sides. So I'm going to have dy dx here. I'll have d over dx of this. So again, just giving away extra credit today. Hands up, what's the first rule I use? What rule gets used first? So Abby? I use the E rule. Some people think power, but it is the E rule because I've got E raised to something. The squared only applies to these parentheses. So I can't start with the power rule because the square does not apply to the E. I really have E raised to something. Show your hands if you knew it. 4 points, 5 for Abby. Do you want to talk about it? So E rule says I get E to that same something multiplied by d dx of the something. We want to talk about that. Please.
If E was like a constant, would you use the exponential rule?
5 points for Chloe. If E were, say, 3, instead of being E, which is about 2.7, absolutely use the exponential rule. Perfect. In fact, the E rule, Chloe, 2 more for her, is just a special case of the exponential rule. Because you notice in the exponential rule, the first thing it says is natural log of the constant, like say 3. The natural log of E is 1. That's where the rules are really the same rule. So, okay, next one. So now we got to do something here. Points for the whole room again. Just raise your hand and tell me. Ken. What rule gets used here, Ken? So Brooke? Power rule, how many new? 4 points, 5 for Brooke. So here's how I remember the power rule. This next line I'm going to write dy dx. I've got e to the something. Got to multiply, so big parenthesis. I have something, right here, something, to a number. So the power rule is 2 multiplied by the something. New exponent is 2 minus 1. And I have d over dx of the something. Questions? Okay, we're going to do the next step a bit in our head as well, because it is critical that you have good notation, but we can do some things in our head now that we've had a little practice. Don't distribute unless there's a reason to distribute, so I would just leave that alone. Okay, now we want to do the purple. Lots of extra credit again. Hands up, what rule am I thinking of? What rule am I going to use? What rule comes first? It's the blend. Add subtract. Because I have d dx of just 2 things adding. I'm going to do that in my head though. How many knew it was add subtract? 4 points, 5 for Lennon. So I'm going to have d1 over dx. d1 over dx. Hands, come on, what's d1 over dx? Do it in your head. What's d1 over dx? Let's go Bronwyn. How many knew it? 4 points, 5 for Bronwyn. So this one's 0. Now I'm going to have d of 3x over dx. If I use the multiplying constant rule, I pull out the 3. I'm left with just dx over dx, which is 1, so that's just 3. Like that. Questions? Awesome. Carter, 2 more points. Written test, you stop here. Don't go any further. It's good enough. Multiple choice, they'll likely say, hey, 3 multiplied by 2 is 6. So I'm guessing the multiple choice answer will be 6. 1 plus 3x. And then e raised to the 1 plus 3x squared. Like that. Question? Please.
How do you know, I mean, does it matter, like, which one comes first, or, like, I don't know, because I always put one first and then it's, like, the other way around.
Other way around?
It's like, you're supposed to have it that way.
In reality, the honest answer is, you do need to memorize that when you're multiplying several factors, you never multiply twice. Like, we don't say 3 multiplied by 2 and 3 multiplied by e. That would be wrong. But when you have several factors being multiplied, here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 factors. You can multiply in any order.
Okay.
And so whatever order you pick is totally fine. That's why, like I said, on the written test, stopping here gives you full credit.
Okay.
Multiple choice, you just have to make sure your answer is the same as theirs, but the order really doesn't matter.
Okay.
5 points. Anybody else? Please, tell me.
Does it matter when you do dy over dx equals and y prime equals? Like, where you switch from dy over dx to y prime?
5 points for Talmadge. These symbols here, so this one, and another one I'll write on the board, y prime of x, those are all exactly the same thing.
Oh, so it doesn't matter?
It really doesn't matter which one you use.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to use this one mostly for now, well, at least once. Like, using that once is a good idea, just to get the habit of remembering that we're really finding a slope, change in y over change in x. But Talmadge is 100% correct. They're all the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, 5 points. Anybody else? Good job today. Cool. That was your drink.